Hello, and on behalf of the United Way of the National Capital Area and the entire staff, welcome to Project Community Connect. I am Erica Lewison, Community Impact Manager for Education. United Way NCA expanded its annual Project Homeless Connect in response to the COVID-19 pandemic and to align with its strategic programmatic direction focused on achieving equity for all of our community members, regardless of race, gender, income, and ability. We're excited to work with our partners and community-based organizations on PCC's mission to build community, shift mindsets through personal experiences and connections, and providing critical resources at no cost to individuals and families in Washington, D.C. and surrounding counties in Maryland and Northern Virginia. Workshop topics for this week include healthy eating on a budget, eviction prevention and rental assistance, saving on utilities, chronic disease prevention and management, starting a small business, legal services in the areas of expungement and immigration, and several others. In this time of COVID, there is no segment of society that has not been touched by this public health crisis, particularly those households who are struggling to afford the basic household necessities, including housing, childcare, food, transportation, healthcare, and even a basic smartphone plan. In response, in this unprecedented time, and as we all continue to navigate uncertainty, it remains imperative that your United Way provide innovative ways to reach workers and their families throughout the DMV. Today, I'm joined by Mitchell Kuhlman from the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children to bring you Talking to Your Child about Online Safety, where you're going to learn about the issues facing children online, how to discuss preventive strategies, and how to report suspected exploitation. Please enter any questions that you may have to our website, and we'll be sure to get back to you. It is a pleasure to be here with you today and to bring you this much needed workshop. And with that, please help me welcome Mitchell Kuhlman.
Hi, hello everyone. As Erica said, my name is Mitchell Kuhlman and I'm with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And I'm here today to discuss talking to your child about online safety. So a little bit about me. Prior to joining NCMEC, I worked in policy and communications for the Zero Abuse Project. Much of my role was to track and analyze legislation as it pertains to civil statute limitations for child sex abuse. So when we got a few bills passed in New York, New Jersey, and California, a large part of my role was to help organize local town halls in those states to help communicate to survivors their new rights. And I also had a prevention role in one of our programs, which was the Jacob Wetterling Resource Center, which some of you may know is based in Minnesota. But for NCMEC, I'm a prevention program specialist, and so my role is to enhance the capacity of our prevention programming by providing direct product support to many of our prevention activities. So that means doing presentations like the one today, or also writing blog content, or also helping writing social media content, and also our one-pagers as well that I'll get into in some of our other resources. So anything and everything prevention, falls to me. So just going to briefly touch on what we're going to be covering today. So I'm going to share a little bit about the National Center and what we do, and talk about our programs around exploitation, including emerging trends with a focus on prevention. Then we're going to walk through some of those prevention resources as well. But before that, I'm just going to make sure that I share this properly so the sound in my videos come through. All right. We're good to go. So our mission here at the National Center is to find missing children, reduce child sexual exploitation, and prevent future victimization. And our slogan, which we use in a lot of our materials, as well as some of our gear that we offer, is "Hope is why we're here." because we hope to live in a world where the National Center doesn't have to exist and that children aren't, being exploited. So that is our goal, and hope is truly why we're here. A little bit about us. So NCMEC was founded in 1984 by John and Reve Walsh after their 6-year-old son, Adam, was abducted from a shopping mall in Florida. He was later found murdered over 100 miles away from his home. So Adam's death and that of many other missing children really ignited a movement to have a coordinated national response to the issues that surround missing and exploited children. So we are a nonprofit, non-governmental organization. So we're based in Alexandria, Virginia. You can see our staff here pictured, obviously pre-COVID times. We partner with the Department of Justice and many other stakeholders, and we're actually congressionally funded in part to operate 15 distinct programs related to missing and exploited children. So over the past 3 decades, we've grown from a handful of staff to more than 300 employees, hundreds of volunteers in cities offices in 5 cities across the country. So quick overview into what we do. First one's finding missing children. So NCMEC operates our national hotline, which is 1-800-THE-LOST. That serves really as our nerve center as we triage reports, tips, and resources to missing and exploited children 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. So we provide many resources to find missing children. We're widely known for our missing children posters that you might see on our social media channels. Some of you might recall that it began on the side of milk cartons. So yes, that was us. We also actively support law enforcement search efforts through secondary distribution of Amber Alerts, rapid deployment of some specialized on-site support, and also our one-of-a-kind forensic resources for long-term missing children cases. And I do want to say one thing about the long-term missing cases. It is absolutely incredible what our team can do. So they can create age progression of photos. So they can have a child who might have been missing at 5 or 6 years old, and they can show what they might look like 5, 10, 15, 20 years in the future. And it's absolutely amazing that they can do that, so we can help find kids who've been missing for quite some time. So NCMEC is here to support families of the missing children as well. So we offer professional and peer support and referrals to community resources throughout the healing process. Next, we have reducing child sexual exploitation. So NCMEC operates the Cyber Tipline, which is a centralized reporting mechanism for suspected child sexual exploitation, including child sex abuse and child sex trafficking. So we provide unique analytical support to law enforcement in investigating these crimes, including assisting with targeting efforts, locating unidentified child victims who you see in these sexually abusive images. And we also know that child sex abuse images that are circulating online can quite often extend the trauma that survivors experience. So we are here for them as well. We help provide information and assistance to survivors who want to take quick action and get their images or videos down from online. And third is preventing future victimization, which is, I think, is the most important, but I might be a little biased as a prevention specialist. So all this work that we do provides an immense amount of data that provides NCMEC with a 30,000-foot view of the evolving threats to our nation's kids. So as a 24/7 organization that has been at the forefront of child protection for over 30 years, it's our responsibility to share this knowledge. So the experience and data drive all of our child safety resources and the training programs that we have to help communities build their capacity to better protect our children. Right, diving right in. So what is child sexual exploitation? So everything that you see here in these bullets is considered considered exploitation. One thing that we want to start with is child sex abuse material. And as you saw there, it changed from child pornography to child sex abuse material because NCMEC chooses to call it child sex abuse material to accurately reflect what is depicted is the sexual abuse of children. So not only do these images document a victim's abuse, when these files are shared across the internet, the child suffers re-victimization each time their image of their sexual abuse is viewed or shared. And also we know that pornography implies some level of consent, and we know that there is never consent when it comes to sexually abusing a child. So the next two highest categories that we've actually seen an increase of reports on are online enticement and also child sex trafficking. So online enticement, the official definition is an individual communicating with someone to believe to be a child via the internet with the intent to commit a sexual offense or abduction. So what this means is that a perpetrator will groom a child in order to take sexually explicit images, meet face-to-face for sexual purposes, engage in a sexual conversation online, or unfortunately to sell and trade the child sex abuse images themselves. And online enticement happens to children of all ages. And NCMEC's data shows that a median age of only 15 years old. So next we have a type of online enticements called sextortion, and we will cover that in the next couple slides as well. But sextortion involves non-physical forms of coercion that are used, such as blackmail, to acquire sexual content, engage in sex, or obtain money or something else. And our data includes victims of sextortion as young as 8 years old, and again with an average age of 15 years old. So when we think about preventing online sexual exploitation, we absolutely cannot wait until the teenage years. We need to be talking to our young children about explicit imagery as young as 5 or 6 years old. So as I mentioned before, the Cyber Tipline is our nation's reporting mechanism for suspected sexual exploitation. So the public and internet providers can make reports of suspected sexual exploitation, and then we review the information and then make it available to the appropriate law enforcement agency. So in 2020, the Cyber Tipline received 21.7 million reports, which included 33 million images and also 31 million videos. And it's important to note that the public reports to the Cyber Tipline doubled since last year. So next we have our Child Victim Identification Program, or CVIP. So today, CVIP operates in a three-part mission. The first is to help locate unidentified child victims that are depicted in these sexual abuse images, and hopefully they can be identified and rescued. The second is to help provide information concerning previously identified child victims, and also to provide survivor services, including facilitating the victim notification and restitution opportunities in the hopes that to the children who have been identified and recovered. So with all the information that comes into CVIP, we were able to draw out some data, and this chart shows the relationship of the exploiter to the child. So this slide represents the data of all children in CVIP, and on the next slide, we're going to be covering actively traded images. In the cases that you see here, the child sex abuse material, we see similar trends than what we see with child sex abuse more broadly, is that the majority of the exploiters have direct access to the child. In fact, if you total up all those categories, it's 50% of exploiters have direct access to a child. And so I know that, let's say, stranger danger has been a very popular narrative throughout, the years. People have said, don't talk to strangers, but that is a percentage, albeit a very small percentage of the cases. So that does happen, but we really need to shift our thinking and focus on people who have direct access to our child and are often closest to us. So also we saw increases in online enticement. And then also self-production. So as a recap, online enticement involves an individual communicating with someone believed to be a child via the internet with intent to commit a sexual offense or an abduction. Self-production includes images and videos that the child produces themselves by either sending a sext or sexting, or creating a video that has sexual explicit content. So these two categories are concerning, but it's still important to really take home the fact that exploiters in these situations are often somebody who has direct access to the child, and it's often somebody that they know and that they trust. So, like I said, actively traded children. I'm going to jump right ahead and put this data out there for you to see. So, this data shows where children have been identified in a series or a group of images, and they are being actively traded. So, we consider it actively traded when the same content has been reported to NCMEC at least 5 times. Unfortunately, there are images and videos that are reported to NCMEC on a daily basis, sometimes even thousands of times over many years. So some of these images are continuously circulating, similar to kind of like a vortex situation. But fortunately, this isn't a large amount of cases, but there is quite a lot of content that continuously circulates. And we know that the images that circulate create a lasting impact on survivors who are included in those images. So looking at the graphs, the gender breakdown might not be surprising to many, but what we want to focus on is the age of the victim. We see here that the age of the victim is 60% are prepubescent, which makes sense because as a society, we are generally hesitant to talk to this group about consent, abuse, sexuality, and also some guidelines about sending in and receiving explicit material. So because of this trend that we see here, NCMEC is focusing our recent efforts on developing prevention education tools for parents and caregivers and other adults to start having these conversations and to be proactive about preventing child sex abuse. This also fits in with what we know about child sex abuse more broadly, where we know that the median age of abuse is 8 years old. So if these prevention interventions that we have don't start until the 1st grade, we are literally missing about half the children who have already been sexually abused. So I know as of right now, if not most, schools are back open, but that doesn't change some of the effects that we saw during the COVID-19 pandemic. We saw that when schools were closed, there were less supervision on children, and they were stuck at home, which means they had a lot of access and opportunity to use technology. And we also saw that relationships are shifting online. And I think not only just with COVID, but with society in general, things are just generally moving into the online space in terms of just about everything that we do. And also there's a reason we might have seen more self-production content is because with people stuck at home, they wouldn't have the chance to possibly connect with an intimate partner or someone that they know, so they might have felt an increased pressure to send nudes or any other explicit material. So we saw an impact on the reports to the Cyber Tipline, it's particularly in online enticement. We saw a 97.5% increase in our online enticement reports. So, and I know that I'm tossing a lot of terms and a lot of data, a lot of figures at you really quickly, but I promise you that it will make sense when we get into talking about our prevention resources. So I want to talk a minute now about self-produced explicit content, which is images that are produced by the child that is depicted in them. Most commonly, we think about this issue in terms of sexting or sharing nudes by teenagers, that is an important topic, but we won't have time to get into that today. For the purposes of this presentation, we're focusing on younger children because we're seeing younger children producing sexual content, unfortunately. When self-produced content makes a child particularly vulnerable to sextortion, the content can be either the goal of sextortion or it can be the start of sextortion. In other words, when the content is produced and an offender obtains it and then extorts them for additional content or money or something else as well. And as we said before, sextortion is a type of online enticement in which non-physical forms of coercion are used, such as blackmail, to acquire that sexual content. And common tactics that are used by perpetrators are harassment, embarrassment, or control. They often use these as grooming tactics. And the perpetrator can be anybody from a stranger to someone you know. And then lastly, we want to cover is live streaming. With the increasing popularity and the integration of popular platforms that allow for live streaming, such as all the major ones, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and then there's also popular in gaming platforms as well. People live stream themselves playing certain video games, and that's where we've seen some exploitation is going to happen. So that's why we label it as an emerging trend, because live streams they're easy to use and they can often feel private, even though there is always a chance that they are being recorded. And they're also very hard to moderate. And it's important to note that we've seen self-produced content in children of all ages, which is unfortunate. But our partners at Thorn recently released some interesting research about self-generated images. So I'm just going to read these off to you. About 7% of kids 11 to 12 years old report that they have sent a nude photo. But 14% in that same 11 to 12 age range report that they've seen non-consensual CSAM. In other words, that is a naked photo of another child they know they aren't supposed to see. And then 10% have shared this type of content without the person depicted in the image's permission. So you might recognize that as somebody sending a nude, and then the person they sent it to shares it to other people, and the other people who see it are actually seeing non-consensual child sex abuse material. By age 13 to 14, this number jumps up to 19% of children who have seen a non-consensual CSAM image, and by 15 to 17 years old, it is 34%. So clearly we can't wait until kids are 15 years old to talk to them about sending, forwarding, or receiving nude images of themselves or of other children. Because if we do wait until they're 15, we're missing the opportunities for prevention. And these conversations are much easier to have if it's always been the expectation from a parent or guardian to discuss this topic with their children. So we like to say that you need to talk about online safety and these issues early and often, talk to them about consent, bodies, relationships, but we will get into, we know it can be a difficult conversation to have. So we will be getting into ways that we can make that a comfortable topic. So our partners at Thorn also conducted a survey on how sextortion had affected youth. And we see here is that how they meet the perpetrator. 49% had an existing relationship offline, and 48% of those met online. 62% complied with demands because they thought it would make the threats stop. I had 1 in 3 victims have never told anyone, largely because of shame or embarrassment. And that's also something that we see with child sex abuse more broadly, is that survivors will wait 20, 30, and 40, and sometimes 50 years to even come forward about their abuse, largely because of shame or embarrassment. And 1 in 4 victims were 13 or younger when threatened. So that goes along with what we were just talking about, generally, that we need to start talking to our children at a lot younger age about these issues. So we have this issue of child sexual exploitation, and the data that shows us that we need to be talking to our children younger and younger about this content. So what are ways that we can do that? So before we get into teaching online safety and some of the resources that NCMEC offers, I want to first talk about some frames that I think are important to have around any conversation about online safety and preventing child sexual exploitation. So let's be very, very clear. This is child sex abuse facilitated by the internet. The things that we need to do to protect children from online exploitation are not at all different from what we need to do to prevent child sex abuse in general. Like I mentioned before, there's several overlaps that we see between the two, between child sex abuse and child sexual exploitation. In fact, they are one and the same in terms of prevention efforts. So when we think about these prevention strategies and messages to families and other interventions, we need to keep in mind and not draw a hard line or a stark division between offline life and real or offline life, because those lives are not different and they're often interconnected. I know I've heard many times when people say, well, that's, no, like, I mean, let's meet up in real life. And it's like, that's kind of an older way to look at things, because the way technology is moving right now, everything has been shifted to online. So real life is online life. And also we know that it's most likely these cases to be someone that they know and that they trust. So it's really important to keep that in mind when we talk about effective strategies and messages. All right, so we get asked this question all the time. So people come and ask us, they say, what are the good apps and what are the bad apps? Like, what is something that I should delete off my kid's iPhone or Chromebook? What shouldn't they have to keep them safe from, being exploited online? And so the real answer to that question is really a good news, bad news type of situation. So the good news is that you don't need to quit your day job and study every single app out there and every security capability out there because child sex abuse and child exploitation, online child sexual exploitation happens on every single platform. So we need to think much more broadly about keeping kids safe online rather than just going on their phone and seeing a particular app and then deleting that app or telling them not to do XYZ online or don't talk to strangers. We need to think on a much broader level on how to protect our children. So in terms of the top threat to kids online, here's how I think we should answer this question. The internet is such a good facilitator of child sex abuse and exploitation because of access. Most importantly, the internet provides private and direct access to children. So in the child sex abuse prevention world, we often talk about eliminating or minimizing the one-on-one interactions with children and adults because we know these interactions create opportunities for children to be sexually abused. Technology creates many, many opportunities for this direct and private access to children that's very hard to monitor. So when we think about how we can be preventing these crimes, we need to think about how we can be mitigating this risk of the one-on-one interaction. Also, it's important to remember that the internet allows for instantaneous and easy access to consumers of child sex abuse material worldwide. So we know that anything that offender has produced or was self-produced content from the child themselves can post or release it onto the internet. And there are people out there who intend to exploit children. So unfortunately, it allows it to be almost instantaneously and easily accessed and shared via the world on the internet. So that's also something that we see there's a lot of demand for, but it's also a very low barrier to entry for this kind of activity. So keeping all that in mind, let's take a look at some of our prevention education. So today we'll be discussing a critical prevention tool to help empower kids and the caring adults in their lives with the skills and knowledge to keep them safe. So the National Center, this is what we mean when we say prevention. We have education focused on increasing issue awareness. For example, knowing that abductions occur and what the warning signs might be. The same thing with child sex trafficking, like knowing what the vulnerabilities that children might face. Also building skills, so learning what to do based on some knowledge that was gained from either a parent, a guardian, or some programs at school. Then also engaging your community in this effort. So from kids to caring adults and to other child serving professionals. So I think engaging your communities in this effort is one of the most important ones because no matter what we are or no matter who we are, we have a role to play in keeping our kids safe. So as you can see on the right side of your screen, the data and trends that we see, we then use that to develop tools and resources to help equip professionals like yourselves in order to keep kids safe. A few strategies for successful implementation of prevention programs. The first is know your audience. You're going to want to know specifically around age and background is really important to make sure that you're saying the right things to really reach the intended audience. Also getting comfortable with the topic is super important because I can guarantee you that talking about child sex abuse is not the preferred topic around a dinner table or watching a sporting event or anything like that. So the more comfortable you are with the topic, the more comfortable the person you're talking to about it will be. And also consider shared experiences, promote skill building, reinforce positive behavior. And then the last one, avoid fear-based materials. I think that's one of the most important because we see a lot of content and programs out there that are meant to scare children, and they're too busy being scared. They miss the entire point of the materials. So I think we want to come at online safety as a light and fun thing whenever possible. Also, what helps in prevention education is to collaborate. So NCMEC is seen as a leader in the missing and exploited child world, but we cannot do it alone. We are a member of the National Coalition to Prevent Sexual Abuse, Child Sex Abuse, and Exploitation, with several other organizations that have very similar goals. So it's important to collaborate with the other organizations that you see there in your community to show a united front in this effort, but at a minimum to tell other organizations what you're doing so that they can be prepared for any potential disclosures. And also people in these organizations can help you access audiences that may not be interested in what law enforcement has to say, and they can help share in the work to help reach those vulnerable communities. And also collaboration is important to reinforce consistent messaging so that the community is hearing the same thing across different sources. So for over 20 years, NCMEC has utilized NetSmarts, which is our online safety program for children and families in grades K through 12. So the main tenets of empower, engage, and encourage. NetSmarts is an amazing resource for navigating all aspects of online safety. And as you can see, you can access the NetSmarts homepage by going to missingkids.org/NetSmarts, or in the bottom corner, you'll be seeing some QR codes that you can scan with your phone, and it'll take you directly to the site content that we are talking about. So NetSmarts offers a lot of amazing resources. They offer supplemental materials for parents, educators, and child serving professionals and others to use. So including those things are activity guides, online games. They have our presentations and some tip sheets that we're going to be discussing. And also they have a kid-friendly website, which I just touched on briefly before about wanting kids to experience these materials in kind of a fun and entertaining manner rather than a scary one. So all these materials are available if you scan the QR code, and also if you go to the URL on the site as well. So within NetSmarts, NCMEC is proud to introduce to you Into the Cloud, which is our animated online safety adventure series that presents age-appropriate information about online safety in an entertaining way to children 10 and younger. So the premise behind this series is that two kids, Nettie and Webster, they live in the NetSmarts neighborhood, which is located on the cloud. And so along with Clicky the robot, who you can see there on the left side of your screen with his little dog, they learn how to keep the internet safer while fighting off the evil plots of the Webville outlaws. So on their epic journey deeper into the cloud, they have to rely on each other and some new friends and everything they've learned about online safety to get them home safely on their adventure. So I know it seems on the cover of this is like a fun cartoon, which it is, but also a lot of work from many NCMEC experts went into creating this series to make it equally as fun as it is educational in preventing child sex abuse. So each season is broken up into 6 episodes. There are 2 seasons as of right now. So each episode revolves around a centralized theme. So as you can see, some of the themes are online privacy, digital citizenship, and also misleading information. For example, in episode 2 called TMI, we see one of the characters, Zion, is loudly and publicly sharing information, personal information about himself for anyone who can hear. And so Nettie and Webster help him understand why privacy is important, because when sharing personal information online, it's impossible to tell who sees it, what they do with it, or how long it remain online for others to see. So following the centralized theme of each episode, we've created these amazing discussion guides to go with it. So these discussion guides are available to help communicate to parents and children the main themes and takeaways from each episode. So these guides go into detail with an episode summary, some lessons learned, and also some discussion starters, hoping to kickstart the conversation. So these guides are perfect for one-on-one implementation, such as a parent-child or mentor-mentee, or you can use it in a small group as well. It's worth noting that with the episode discussion guides for season 2, they are different questions for the different age groups. So season 2 of Into the Cloud was just released and dives into the unique topic really specific to online exploitation prevention, which is live streaming and sextortion, which we discussed earlier. So in season 2, Zion, who you can see pictured here in front of his computer, is the victim of sextortion. He jokingly moons the camera while live streaming himself playing a video game. Then he is contacted by someone who has recorded and saved the image and then begins to threaten him. So the whole series revolves around the story of how he deals with that, from pulling together the courage to tell his father and reporting to the people who are taunting him, and then also reporting and removing the image from the server where it was posted and then also shared. So the goal here is to talk to our children about this issue in an empowering and approachable way that also broaches the subjects that we're most uncomfortable talking about with our young children. So with that, I'm going to play the trailer for season 2.
What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? Harold, is there somewhere we could get coats?
Nettie, look! Isn't it beautiful?
How many kids do you think will fall for it? More than you think. We've got it down to a science.
I just want to get that picture down and go back to normal. I made a mistake. Let it go.
Just remember, what happened isn't your fault. You've got this. All right, let's do this.
So, Nettie, Webster, are you ready to go home?
All right, so you might have noticed, if you're watching closely, that my background that you see is actually the ice caves that Nettie and Webster fall down later in the season. Spoiler alert, sorry. But that's great. So you can check that out at netsmarts.org as well. So with season 2, the same thing as season 1. Each episode follows a centralized theme. The one we just discussed was digital blackmail. So as Zion works through his issue of being a victim of sextortion, we see the steps that he takes along the way to get his image removed and also teach him important online safety skills. Next up, a resource. NCMEC has several other resources to share regarding online exploitation. First, we have this video called Your Photo Fate. So we developed a short video that's aimed for teens to discuss about sexting. So I'll play the video and then I'll give you some examples of how we use it and how we can talk to our kids about this issue. So let's take a look.
You probably get lots of messages every day, but what if you got one like this? What would you do? Would you send a picture? No? Cool. That's an easy way to protect yourself. But what if you'd chosen differently? What if you send a picture? They'd never share it with anyone else, right? Do you want the picture shared with others? Sorry, you no longer have a choice. It's out of your hands now, because sometimes people we trust break that trust. Maybe the person you sent the picture to shows it to some friends. Maybe they send it to a couple friends, who send it to a couple more friends, who... you get the idea. It spreads, and you never know who might see it. Your little brother? Your mom? Other people at school?
Seriously?
And I would never.
Even strangers could get a hold of your picture. You never really know where that picture will end up.
Look at it.
How long it will be out there? Or what the consequences will be. Don't let others decide what happens to your image. Think before you share. Learn more at netsmarts.org. And hey, if your image is already out there, know that it's not your fault. For information about removing sexual pictures and videos from the internet, visit missingkids.org/gethelpnow.
All right, so your photo fate is perfect for middle school and high school students as well, in order to help start those conversations surrounding sexting, which I just had a youth panel yesterday. They don't even call it sexting anymore. They call it just trading, or I'm going to mess this up. They called it, it was risky text, I think is what they said. So it's not even called sexting anymore. So you need to be, that's also a point to knowing the age of your audience helps when you talk about these preventative materials. So with your photo fate, they have discussion questions as well that cover choices, consequences, and some signs of health relationships. So that's free to use as well on netsmarts.org. Next, we have taking a deeper dive into some of the resources that we offer that can either stand alone or supplement into the cloud if you're using it. We have a variety of tip sheets that are available. So one of the main topics that's addressed in Into the Cloud Season 2 is identifying trusted adults. So our tip sheet here, Who is a Trusted Adult, is perfect for kids to help identify those people in their lives to which they can trust and who they can turn to if they need help. It's important to note that a trusted adult is not always a parent, as demonstrated in Into the Cloud. Our main character, Zion, reaches out to Harold, who is his trusted adult, rather than his own father, because he's afraid that his father would get mad or punish him. But when Zion decides to tell his father, he first reacts with anger. And we depicted it this way because we want to get across the point that this is why it's so important that we educate parents on the issues of child sexual exploitation and sextortion specifically, because it's important to talk to your kids about technology, sexuality, and health relationships. It's important to communicate to your child that if they do run into trouble, that they aren't alone and that you're here to support them. So once you find your trusted adult, talking about these things is not always easy, so it might not be easy to approach them. So we created the tip sheet, So You Need Some Help. So this will help start the conversation with your trusted adult and also helps navigating some of their potential responses. So when you use this tip sheet, it's important to communicate that it's always okay to ask for help, that it may not be easy, but it will be worth it. So no matter what you're dealing with, it's important to communicate to your child that there is someone who can help and that they are not alone. And last, we have our sextortion tip sheet, which we mentioned a few times today. So it's worth noting the scenario that we carved out Into the Cloud is not a common way for sextortion to happen. So the sextortion tip sheet emphasizes that offenders in sextortion cases can often be somebody that they know. It covers ways to talk about technology and sexuality and relationships, along with some general tips and so what parents need to know about sextortion. And again, if you scan the QR code in the bottom corner, it'll take you right to the PDF resource. So lastly, I want to highlight some of the more general resources that NCMEC offers. For some free online trainings, be sure to visit NCMEC Connect. So we have on-demand trainings and resources and some best practices related to missing and exploited children. Some of the topics on there include child sex trafficking, as well as other online safety presentations. Next, we have the Family Advocacy Division, which is made up of a specialized team of child and family advocates. So the Family Advocacy Division provides emotional support to families experiencing trauma when a child is missing or sexually exploited, and also offers expert guidance on how families can move forward. So the Family Advocacy Division has a committed network that includes mental health providers, crisis intervention services, social service agencies, and law enforcement as well. So all services are free, and families do not need to have an active case in order to be eligible. And you see the ones listed there are just a few of the ways that the Family Advocacy Division can help. So we are also here to help people remove their sexually explicit content from the internet. We hear a lot from survivors of CSAM, the long-lasting damage and impact that a sexually abusive image online has to them. Specifically, they talk about the lack of control of both the file's existence and also the circulation, which leaves them to be struggling throughout their recovery. So using some new technology and other partners, NCMEC is working with the ESP industry and with children and their families to help identify these images and have them tagged and then removed from ESP servers. So this empowers and allows law enforcement and other child advocates to tell survivors that something can be done to limit these files online and also remove them when they are flagged. So NCMEC provides information for survivors who want to take quick action. A few of the ways you can do that, as you highlight in the bottom, is the 24-hour hotline. Also, you can make a Cyber Tipline report. You can also click under the Cyber Tipline, is your explicit content out there? That'll direct you to ways to report sexually explicit content. Also, that we know that sexual exploitation happens on every single platform. So on the bottom of this webpage, we've included some of the major platforms that direct directly to their online safety procedures. All right, well, that's a wrap, folks. The last thing that I want to leave you with is that we need to be talking to our children at a younger age about online safety, because we all have a role to play when it comes to keeping our children safe. So here's my email. If you have any questions or want more information on anything that I discussed, please feel free to reach out. Also, to request any of our outreach materials, please contact outreach@ncmec.org. We have a stockpile of amazing resources that we can send you for free. Also, be sure to follow NCMEC on our social media at Missing Kids and also at NetSmarts as well. So with that, I want to thank the United Way for having me here today. But please take care of yourselves. Thank you.
Mitchell, that was an amazing presentation. We have learned so much from your presentation. Thank you for highlighting this very important issue that, you know, keeping your child safe online actually goes beyond, you know, cyberbullying, which is what I think so many parents probably think about when you think about keeping your child safe online. And so you really, really enlightened us. And so thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to have you here with us today. And so partnerships such as this one with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children are critical to moving the work forward and ensuring your United Way can meet the needs of the community, and that together we can provide the best and most needed resources for the region. Thank you to each of you for attending today's workshop. To learn more about what United Way is doing to mobilize and make bold strides until we achieve equity for all of our community members, regardless of their race, gender, income, and ability, please visit unitedwaynca.org/PCC. Thank you.